Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rumors versus Facts, a UGA Sports live show where we talk about recruiting, Georgia recruiting, Bulldogs, what they're doing, what they're up to. And it is a celebratory episode this Thursday. We moved it from Monday to Thursday because we wanted to get signing day in just in case Kirby Smart pulled some weird trick out of his hat. Well, let's be polite. We'll say out of his hat because Kirby's been known to do that. He's been known to, heck, last signing day, you had some KJ Bolden excitement. And we weren't expecting too much with the Terry Bussey thing, but just in case, we decided let's not do the show Wednesday night. Let's do it Thursday and catch up. Of course, last week we had Joe Wyndon on, and Joe reached out to me today. He's like, hey, you want me to come back on? I'm like, yeah, but I know you're busy. He goes, man, we are so busy. So we're going to have Joe Wyndon on. Not next week. We're not going to do a show next week. We're going to get back to Monday. So a week from Monday, we'll have a show, and then we'll have Joe on. And we're going to have him go through this number one class. We're going to make him give us insider information about the guys that Georgia signed. He has insider stories. We are going to hold his feet to the fire until he tells us everything he knows. So we got Trent finally joining us, a slacker. I'm raising my children. So Trent's finally here. So the gang's all here. We appreciate all of you joining us. And yeah, I want to get right to it. The fact that Georgia with the number one signing class again, I think it's a pretty big deal. The reason I say that, some people go, well, with the transfer portal and NIL, that shit doesn't matter anymore. It does. It does because, yes, guys are going to transfer. You will lose guys to the portal, and you'll add guys to the portal. But if your core, your base, your 85 is better than everyone else's 85, and you don't have to compete for the best players out of the portal every freaking weekend, you're going to beat other teams. There's not a school in the country that would say, hey, we don't want the number one class. We're just going to go hard in the portal. Bull crap. You want the number one class, and Kirby signed it for the fourth time. I know he's had 9 recruiting classes, but I'm not counting that first one because that was kind of he came in December and tried to hold that together. That's a little too much. But let's talk about the fact that he had number one class, and then the following 2 years had 2 back-to-back champions. Recruiting matters. Or am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, the core of those teams is from there's 18, 19, 20 classes, I think, that were the number one ones. And like you said, it's not rocket science. You get better players than everybody else, you've got a good chance of beating everybody else. Like you talk about the blue chip ratio stuff and all these kind of different measurements of talent. And it's Georgia's at the top, Alabama's up there, Ohio State's usually up there, Michigan under Jim Harbaugh's been up there. Those are the teams that Clemson, these are the teams that are perennially competing for national titles over the last decade or so. So yeah, like you said, Roddy, it's a huge deal. Yesterday didn't have a bunch of drama because literally everybody in the class signed in December. They added the preferred walk-on commitment from Jeremy Bell, which we'll get to later. But getting all these guys signed, I think 19 or 20 of them are already on campus and going through workouts and all that kind of stuff is huge. That's how you keep this train rolling is just getting better players than everybody else. Again, it's really not complicated at the end of the day. And Kirby Smart has just about mastered it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, if you get 100, say you sign 25 a year and you retain half of your roster throughout the 4 years, so you're still landing 50. Just say after 4 years you landed 50 of the guys, you still landed 50 blue chips. So I mean, if you're only retaining, which I think 50% could be, I haven't looked back at the classes, but I have a feeling that it would be right there around that 50% mark, and that's 50 players, and I mean that's 50 top tier players. Kirby Smart, he signed minimal 3 stars, and the 3 stars he did sign have been very good. So you're talking about building. He's a guy that's built on team chemistry, and he's having those leaders in the room. Those leaders don't come from transfers or coming in for a 1-year transfer. Those are not leaders. Those are guys that have been in the system, know the system, and you got to have a system in place. And you're not going to have a system in place with transfers coming in and out every year. You might can do that in basketball, but you're not going to be successful long term doing that in football.
Mm-hmm. I think Georgia's just on another level right now to bang off Trent, and And it just kind of talks about how strong the culture is that Kirby's built. You go back and talk about that, 50% retention rate, if, that around that is the number. I mean, that's impressive. And, especially the last 3 or 4 years when the transfer portal and NIL have been there as well.
That's a good point. And I know Kirby won't outspend other teams in the portal. They have a philosophy, if you will, about, hey, this is what we think players are worth, and we're not going to upset the locker room by bringing in people and paying them way too much money. Caleb Downs is going to get about $30,000 at Georgia a month. That's pretty good money. Okay. Ohio State offers him $100,000 a month. And I mean, I'm not sure the exact amount, but it's in that exact range. I know that. I've been able to confirm it from multiple people. Kirby's like, that's 3 times what they had agreed to. It's like, and here's the thing, Georgia probably had it, could probably get it, but why? And they're like, wait a minute, I got a safety making more than my quarterback. I got a one guy. There's nothing wrong with it, but what are your other safeties doing? So anyway, my point is, it's a Kirby's not going to go heavy there, but when you have a Chris Smith who shines in years 3 and 4, Robert Beal, Chaz Chambliss, guys that he's developed. What was Kirby Smart most mad about when Julian Humphrey and C.J. Harris and those other guys left? Not Julian Humphrey. Who's the other 5-star deep cornerback that went to Miami?
Stevenson?
Yeah.
Tyreek Stevenson.
I think it was him. Yeah. No, Shaheem Singletary.
Yeah.
When guys like that leave, he's like, look, you were just here. You were just getting good. We were just training you. And he wants to develop them and see them go through it. So he likes the fact that he can take somebody who's raw, get them better, and rely on them for multiple years versus go spend a lot of money to pull a player out of the portal and have a bunch of mercenaries in there. Now, it will work for some schools. Ole Miss is going to be terror, an absolute terror with the guys they've added. A lot of schools have improved their rosters by going through the portal. But Kirby goes and gets a London Humphreys. That's not a guy that everybody was going crazy over. I mean, everybody wanted Evan Stewart. You got Colby Young, Michael Jackson III. The only real, I guess, big name he got was Trevor Etienne, and they paid through the nose for him. So, but again, that's a guy who's proved it multiple years. He's like, look, you're going to have to – you're getting more than the other running backs, but, you've proved it more. So I think it's a good philosophy. I'm not saying that just because we cover Georgia. I'm just thinking if I ran this business, which, at UGA Sports, I brought in, it's like, hey, Trent, I know you've been here longer than anybody else, but I'm bringing in Lance, and I'm going to pay him 3 times what you make.
Lance, how much you make? No, I'm just kidding.
You see what I'm saying? It'd be like, you'd be like, okay, but F you, dude. I did the time, and I can't. I started with you as a true freshman. I started with you right off the bat. And you could have some resentment. Now, maybe we don't work as well as a team like we do when you have a situation like that. So, I'm all for what Kirby's doing from a management and a roster standpoint. Go get the good players in high school, make them better, and then the ones you miss on, to your point, the transfer away, the ones that he hates that transfer away, the ones he's happy that transfer away, then you got the portal, and you're not wasting all. NIL is not an unlimited resource. You can't buy a team.
How many games last year are you sitting there watching on TV when Georgia's not playing, and they're like, reception by so-and-so, transfer from Georgia, tackled by so-and-so, transfer from Georgia. And I'm like, and Georgia's still a top 4 team, and you got players playing on the big stage, transfer from Georgia, transfer from Georgia, transfer from Georgia. So that just tells you a little bit about how Georgia's been able to manage the numbers. And you're looking at a school like Ole Miss, Georgia's sitting there, averaging 20-something blue-chip guys per year. Ole Miss might be averaging 9 in a recruiting trail. So if you're retaining half of those, you're down to 4, throughout the recruiting process. And you have to add those to even be on Georgia's level, to be on Jordan Alabama's level. And
heaven forbid any of them get hurt. Yeah. I mean, what we heard about for Alabama and Ohio State, who were on that level, is they lost one player too many. Georgia lost one player too many in Amarius Mims. But these other schools, they just don't have it. And to your point about all the guys that you're able to lose and they go be stars elsewhere, and Georgia's still 3 points away from, pretty much making it into the playoffs. You know that you can just lean on these teams towards the end because their best players are tired, or their best players are out. And you've got the next 3-star that you're developing, 5-star that you signed, who's ready to go out there and kick some butt in the third and fourth quarter. You're just going to kill them. So,
I mean, most of these teams are lucky to have a guy who can snap the football. And Georgia's sitting there rotating 7 offensive linemen and not missing a beat. So, I mean, it's a good problem to have that they have in Athens. And the quarterback drives a Lambo. So,
Yeah.
Jed, why don't you drive a Lambo, man?
Well, I'm lucky I can afford to drive at all since I don't get paid anything. So we'll cross that bridge.
We know you make money on the rankings. We know you.
That's true. I don't get paid anything from you. It's all from the recruits and their families that pay me to bump their rankings up. So
I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, how much you were paid to keep somebody at 2 and another one at 3. I mean,
it's like football. Like the higher up you go in the rankings, the more money's involved. So,
at Jed May on
down here in the 200, like the money's not as much. When you get up at like the Power 5 level, top 50, then that's when the checks start flying. So
the hundo marks.
Yeah,
better be careful for your taxes.
Yeah.
I do want to mention this highlight or this quote I have on the screen. This is from Adam Gorney. Now, he's our national recruiting lead analyst. He's the one that is the number one guy in the Rivals universe, if you will, when it comes to rankings. And he said, look, since Nick Saban retired, Kirby Smart is unequivocally the best recruiter in college football. And again, it would have been tight had he not retired, but there's no question now. Says, I don't even think it's a discussion at this point. Not only is what he's doing impressive recruiting wise, but he's turning them into national champions and NFL draft picks. That has a snowball effect. Kids are going to go there, they're getting developed, and they're becoming millionaires because of it, driving Lambos, as we mentioned, and that will only beget more kids to come to Athens. So it's a good system. The only way I see this system falling apart is if Kirby just says, look, I've had enough. Because no matter, yes, the NIL and the 365 recruiting and the transfer portal can be giant pains in the ass, but Kirby is so competitive, whatever curveball is thrown towards all of college football, I trust him to adapt and make the most of it. NIL came about, he figured a way to work with it. Transfer portal came away, figured a way to work with it. 365 recruiting, he was already doing that. So now you take one of the premier guys off the board. And again, this number one class, that 2025 class, guys, tell me where do you think that right now, predict where the 2025 class winds up in the national rankings?
I don't think it's going to be worse than second. Just with what's, seriously, yeah, Jed May. Oh, good. I like that. I like that. Luxury car funds. We'll get there. You look at, because it's always easy to say, like, at this time every year with every guy's like, oh man, Georgia's going to get everybody. Georgia's going to set an all-time points record, whatever. But like with what Georgia, they've got such a good foundation laid, and there is so much out there that they're in good position. Like, let's say there's a realistic world where, let's say Georgia flips Julian Lewis, and then you land, Talyn Taylor, who we had a story on this weekend, top, I think, 30 player in the country. You land, you keep both your tight ends. You get David Sanders. You get, say, a Juan Gaston. You land Elijah Griffin. You land Zayden Walker.
Keep Justice Terry.
So, and what, Trent? It's the top 20 kids, I think, count for your points or something, right? So, especially with, and not to say a class is top heavy, but when you stack so many 5-stars up there at the top, yeah, it adds up really quick. So, yeah, it's hard to say. Georgia finished first this year. The team that's in finished second, lost their head coach, who's the greatest of all time. So, yeah, someone's got to, Texas step up and fill that. I don't know. LSU's class is off to a really good start. A lot of the Georgia's got I think 5 or 6 commits. So these schools up here at the top have got more commits than Georgia does, therefore more points. So, but yeah, it's hard to see a world where they finished outside the top 2, maybe 3. It's just I don't see how we can bring this up in December if I'm wrong, but that's just I don't see any way they're not top 2.
This is a class that Georgia had committed the number 2 player in the country. They had committed Nikar, one of the top players in the country. Mm-hmm. They had committed, or they were right there with the number 1 defensive end in the country. It came down to Georgia, Missouri. I mean, there's a lot of kids that Georgia missed on or had committed and still landed in the number 1 class. That's what makes it impressive, because just with the player, the late flip there at the end with KJ Bolden was kind of the cherry on top. But just overall, most of these kids were committed for a long time, and Georgia had a lot more of these guys either on.
Trent, you're breaking up there, brother. Or either I'm breaking up.
It might be me. Am I here?
You're here.
Oh, but yeah, it's just impressive how they had, how they went about this class, and with all the drama of losing kids, missing out on kids, going through a summer and saying, "God, we're missing on every player that we're going after." That's what the feeling was. Those July and August months were long months because it seemed like every single guy that they were in for. Well, they missed on that guy. They missed on that guy. They missed on defense tackle. They missed on and to end up with almost a 3,200 point class and the number 1 class. Well, I mean,
to your point, I want to mention the fact that so right now, looking at the 2025 class, Georgia's 8th, and as Jed points out, Georgia only has 5. Notre Dame's number 1, but they got 3 times the number of commits. They have 14. Yeah. That throws it off. But,
Jed will bump those 2 3-stars up to 4th place.
Yeah, sure.
But to the point, Georgia beat Alabama. Alabama was number 2, but that still counts Julian Sam as one of their 5-stars because he technically did sign with them. They lost a number of those players, so even the guys that did sign in that number 2 class, they lost some. And the only reason I bring that up is not to go ha Alabama. It's because what you were saying, I'd forgotten the sheer number of guys that decommitted from Georgia or Georgia's in on and didn't get. I mean, they had a chance to almost lap the field had they held on to some of those guys. And of course, hey, maybe Dylan Raiola's here if Kirk Herbstreit keeps his big mouth shut. I kid.
He was on Feinbaum earlier today defending himself.
Yeah. Defending himself is the correct description there.
Yeah. I missed it. Recap, but it's
to me, it was a straw man argument where he's like, well, what was I supposed to say? That, rules bad? No. And that's not what you were asked. You were asked about the fact that, did you tell him to? And he's like, if the only thing I'm guilty of, when you say the only thing I'm guilty of, or what I may have done, it sounds defensive, man. Just say, that's bull crap. I never said that. He's full of BS. He's drunk, If you mischaracterize what I said that badly, I'd call your ass out.
It would have been one thing if Raiola family reached out to Herbstreit and did this, but Herbstreit reached out to the Raiola family, and that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Again, he's not in the business of telling kids where to go. I get it, family friend, and I'm just kind of busting Kirk's balls. He's been great. He's been on our podcast multiple times. Super professional, super good guy. Love him to death. Got no issues with him. But I'm just saying, if it wouldn't hurt our brand, I would throw some of the people that have given us bad information over the years under the bus. Be like, because what you're supposed to do in journalism, if a source tells you something and it's wrong, or they willfully mislead you in order to try to win a news cycle or tell you something, and you find out that they lied to you, you throw their ass under the bus. You put them on blast. That's the only thing that keeps them honest. But sometimes if you were to do that, you'll stop getting all the other news that you may need. So we can't always go and say, hey, this guy was wrong. And plus stuff changes. So I think, do I trust Dom Raiola? Do you guys trust him?
Mm-hmm. No.
But it was not Kirk Herbstreit saying, "Hey, that's a good idea," that made him go there. The fact was they had a new agent that came in right before he was supposed to come to Athens. The agent said, "Hey, Matt Rule says transfer quarterback's worth $1.5 to $2 million," and I've seen stories where Carson Beck's going to get $4 million. My guy needs 3 times what you're offering him. And Georgia said, "Get out of here."
And let's be honest, Don Raiola wanted Dylan at Nebraska throughout the whole process. And it just took a while to talk Dylan into it.
No, I mean, that's how it goes. So it wasn't Kirk Herbstreit. I'm just kidding about him, But the fact, to your point, that this class could have been even better, and it was still the runaway number 1. And by the time the 2025 class is over, we should be having a show in February 2025 going, damn, they just signed the number 1 class again. Speaking of, this is not a fluke for Kirby Smart. We mentioned that he's had 3 other number 1 classes, but I thought that this chart that our man Patrick put together is mind-boggling. Look at that. Georgia's recruiting rankings over the last 50 years. What does it do at the end?
This zigzags towards up, kind of climbing that mountain.
Yeah, when you see, what'd you say, Rowdy? It's 50 years? Is that what you said?
The last 50 years.
So you can kind of see, the rigged. Well, no one can see my cursor, but the rigged era was pretty good. Had some ups and downs, and then the Kirby era is it's all right there in that top, that top right quadrant, which is it's crazy. It's just
I don't know what happened about 30 years ago, but it looks like they had one every other class. It was just great and didn't sign anybody the next year.
Yeah. But that's what they'll tell you. The old guys who used to call 1-800 numbers to find out the latest on who was going to sign, people that went to super preps back in the day. My buddy Bobby Burton, who I've known forever in this industry when he was running his thing, people used to call. And if you get down here and you'll see it's like 3rd class, 12th, 29th, 13th, 3rd, 6th, 10th, 9th, 8th, 22nd, 9th, 3rd, because it was cyclical. Once you signed a whole bunch of really good guys, it was tough to do it back-to-back years because like, oh, well, they're loaded. I'm not going to get a chance to play.
Yeah.
And it still happens today. You'll see teams go up and down like that. But Nick Saban, and while Kirby was there, Ohio State, Clemson to some extent, a few of the actual blue bloods, high-end blue bloods, were able to convince kids, you got to keep coming. And what has Kirby shown to be able to sign back-to-back number 1s? And then you notice he signed that many number 1s, and he took a little dip. But what he do with those back-to-back number 1s is he won 2 titles. And the biggest point is he got last 2 classes, 25 guys drafted.
Yeah. I just want to point out that 2021 class ranking 5th, like, oh man, what happened? That was the COVID class. And then you've got guys out that, like, I don't know if Javon Buller was in that class. Brock Bowers was in that class, I know.
Yeah.
So, you get guys like, God, I don't even know who else. That was before my time. But point is, that was a weird year for everything. And Bowers was I think he was like a 4-star, like a mid 250 guy, I think, for Rivals. And obviously looking back, was a guy that Georgia had a great early eval on and got him committed and got him to stick. So, you look at, again, that 21 class is the I don't want to say outlier because 5th, it's not like 5th is bad, but that's just one that's a weird for everybody with not being able to host kids and all that kind of stuff. So pretty impressive to get the evaluations on guys they were still able to get out of that one.
Yeah, you had Micah Morris and Dylan Fairchild. Yeah. And Lassiter, Javon Johnson.
And Smile, right?
A.D. Mitchell, Javon Board.
So, I mean, that one worked. Like, rankings-wise, when those guys signed, it might not have been what a couple of these other classes have been, but you look back on it now, and Javon Buller was in that class. I didn't know if he was or not. Jared Wilson, who's got a good shot to be your starting center this fall.
A.D. Mitchell, man, even though he's not here, come on, he's pretty good.
Like, that's great. Like, how many of these? Let's say 3 stars.
Chaz.
It's
Micah Morris is starting left tackle or left guard.
You also had Tyke Smith and Darian Kendrick in the transfer portal that year.
Well,
Yeah.
and Vandergriff, who is I don't know if he's the highest rated guy or not, but a guy who's skewing that average upward, never played any meaningful reps and is transferred. So it's again that's an interesting
That goes back
look
to
at this, what with how what the class was like trying to get it in and how it's turned out a few years later.
But to your point, when you look back at that 2020 class, and I mean, just that's pretty damn stacked.
I mean, first four: Broderick, Tate, Kendall Milton, Darnell,
Keeley.
Just saying. So that carried over. So even if you'd had a weak year with that number 5 ranking, this was ranked number 3. Come on, man.
And they signed what was it? They signed 5 receivers in that class because I just saw Justin Robinson. That was the same as Marcus Rosemy, Jack Saint, Jermaine Burton, Ladd, and who was the 5th?
Oh, sorry, I was right past it. I
I mean,
want to pull up. I'm going to pull up this part here real quick about. So we talk about that 2020 one class and how it might have been the kind of the outlier number 5. This one was ranked super high. Michael Williams, yes, of course. Barry Alexander, not here. Julian Humphrey, almost lost him. He's back. Jaheim Singletary, gone. Marvin Jones Jr., almost lost him. Marcus Washington, gone. Cedric Washington, gone. Dare Smith, gone. Gunnar Stockton here. Malachi here. Javon Walker here. Now Morissette, where's he? Hood, gone. Aluba, gone.
Peter Smith, gone.
Yeah, it's so. In other words, I'm trying to pull that back to the fact that exactly what Trent said. You can lose half the class when you sign it, but if you're working from that strong a group, the half that you have left is better than most. And then if you can go get a Trevor Etienne to supplement it, so be it. Big shout out real quick to Evan Grimes for the super chat there. He says, "Do we have any intel on when workouts are coming along? Are the pups adjusting?" The only thing I heard was there are some guys who are losing weight.
I was going to say I would bet a significant amount of money that Nair Daniels does not weigh 385 pounds or whatever he weighed when he showed up. That's the only thing I can bet for. Namdi Agboko does not weigh what he weighed when he got there. I would bet.
Well, Namdi is, I mean, his coach called him a flat belly anyway. If you look at that picture of him, Jordan Davis, he looks good,
Yeah.
But yeah, he's not going to be up where he was coming into anyway. The only thing I heard was these guys are losing weight because that offensive line came in bad.
Jordan Davis came in. When he came in, he was like at 365 or something. And by the time fall rolled around, he was like at 325, 330.
Daniel Calhoun.
I heard he was like a couple biscuits shy of 3. He's north 350 by far, so but you're right.
I've heard Nazir Johnson look good for, a month and a half in as well.
Yeah, Nazir, what a great, again, there's a flip from Florida. So
yeah.
Super chat from KC. We appreciate that. It says, yes, Kirk is BS. The Raiola family's BS. If they think we believe Dylan flipped because of legacy. Well, legacy is part of it, but also if you get paid 3 times as much money. Now, hey, Raiola can afford a Lamborghini. So, just saying.
How do you feel like if you're Dylan's brother? I mean, are they moving back to Nebraska to play high school football? What are we doing?
Oh yeah. I didn't even thought about that. I mean, they got the house in Buford and his kids, his younger brother's there. But hey, they change high schools every year, so he's used to it by now. Hey, real quick, I thought that Georgia Sun's #1 class and back-to-back years, Georgia assistant Trey Scott is named the Rivals Recruiter of the Year. So congratulations to Trey Scott. That's
impressive because he missed on every target that he had. Remember?
Yeah. I like that retweet today that Roddy had from someone about on the vent talking about, oh, he can't recruit. And then, look at him now.
Hey, and we weren't able to run in and defend him when those first accusations of he can't recruit came around. It's not like we could point to a long list of guys that he had landed. And there was high-profile defensive lineman after high-profile defensive lineman that it felt that Georgia was second or third, and it became kind of a meme, a narrative that he couldn't land players. But he's been recruiter of the year twice, so that's pretty damn good.
And the impressive thing about him is when he came along, we knew how good of a developer he was. And we said, and this was before Trayvon. I remember, saying if he ever gets some first round picks, if he ever has that, it's gonna take off. His recruiting's gonna take off, and that's exactly what it's done. Because I mean, you're still talking Trayvon Walker. I mean, recruits are still talking Trayvon Walker. Recruits are still talking Jordan Davis.
Devontae Wyatt.
So I mean, putting 3 defensive linemen in the first round in 1 year, that speaks volumes, and he's taken off on the recruiting trail.
You were there when we first met Tramel Walther, and Richard LeCount's dad was saying, "Yeah, I brought this guy to Georgia's attention. They're going to offer him. I think they offered him as like a preferred walk-on or something like that first. And I think he became a scholarship guy, but it was like at first, it was like this guy's way too undersized. Come on, this is a favor to the LeCounts. I heard that said more than once. Bullshit. He got Tramel Walther to play. He can develop him. To your point, some of the guys that he's developed, and the fact that you can land 3 or 4 defensive linemen in a class who were good, but
you would have never told me Devontae Wyatt was going to be a first round pick when he got to Georgia.
For him to land, you had 6 offensive linemen and 6 defensive linemen in this class, no?
5 defensive linemen.
Is it 5?
I think.
And then 6 offensive linemen.
6 offensive, 5 defensive linemen. That's still pretty good. A couple 5 stars in there. And I also want to mention the fact, shout out to him, but I thought it was interesting that honorable mentions in the SEC. Fran Brown for the Georgia secondary, he did a great job there. Now he's he's head at Syracuse. Travaris Robinson at Alabama, who's now at Georgia, was also on this list, as was Glenn Schumann for the linebackers.
I don't know what Glenn Schumann brings in 2 elite linebackers every class, and 3 last class. His from an overall volume standpoint, he's only landed those 2 or 3 guys, but they're always studs.
Studs, yeah.
God, I mean, if you weren't blown away by CJ Allen this year, I can't help you. You need to get off my show.
And then you got Todd Hartley, who brings in 1 or 2 studs at tight end every year. So,
so Casey asked his own question. And he says, "Who is Trey landed?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, Jordan Davis, Trayvon Walker, Devontae Wyatt, big Jamal Jarrett,
Michael
Williams. Who was the other one?
Jordan
Hall. Thank you.
Jordan Hall.
Christian Miller.
Jonah.
Justin Green. Nazir Johnson.
The list goes on and on.
It really does. Hey, man, we only have like an hour for this show again. But to the point, that's why nationally he was recognized by the Rivals guys as being the recruit. And he won it last year. That damn Beast Media says, "What have I missed so far?" Just can't be on time. Then your name's probably Trent.
Jed started the show with his shirt off.
Yeah.
He did. Shout out to Coulter Ginn.
Yeah, looked really good in the state championship game against Stockbridge. I think Perry played.
Chase Taylor and Stockbridge.
Kid he was throwing things all over the place. So anyway, there was some news yesterday. It was a very quiet day. Georgia had the number 1 class. No one was able to get close to him. And they did wind up getting a commit from I called him a wide receiver because that's how we have him listed, but you guys want to call him an athlete or what? How do you want to describe Jeremy Bell?
I think athlete is good. I think he's going to be a DB. It makes a lot more sense to be wanting to bring in a DB late as opposed to bringing in a receiver. Although you could make the argument he's probably not going to contribute year 1 either way. but either way, I mean, he's a guy who could end up on either side of the ball. He's that talented. He's from Clinch County, which I want to say is 1A football, I think.
1A division
so,
2.
But yeah, I mean, and people have mentioned this on the board. He's a 3-star guy. He had some, he's not choosing a preferred walk-on at Georgia over Alabama offers, but he had some decent scholarship offers, and he chose to come to Georgia for what we were just talking about, to get developed, to spend some time. And then listen, if you spend a year or two in Athens and it's clear you're not going to play, you are going to be a hot commodity for having developed under whether it's Brian McClendon or Travaris Robinson, Dante Williams, Kirby Smart. So it's a great for a late. I mean, he announced an offer like a week or two ago. He visited last weekend. And I mean, to have this kind of come out of nowhere over the last week or so, to have it be a preferred walk-on is a great late pickup.
Yeah. But there's been numerous walk-ons come to Georgia and leave and transfer and come to Georgia as preferred walk-on with offers from Furman, Georgia State, schools like that, and then all of a sudden they go to TCU or go to Syracuse or go Division I. And I think Jeremy. I actually had somebody reach out to me yesterday. He sent me a text message. It's a coach, and he sent me a text and he said, I think Jeremy's gonna surprise some people. After I told him, and this is a team that only threw 20 passes all year, and I know he's listed as a wide receiver. They only threw 20 passes all year. He caught 16 of them, but he also had 900 something yards rushing. He also was matched up against other opposing team's best wide receiver every game. He also was their kick returner and punt returner. And he averaged 15 points a game in basketball, and he won state in the 400 meter, running in 50 seconds.
That is. Let me stop you right there. If you've ever watched the 400 meter race, it's an awful race. You have to love pain to win that or the 800.
It's a straight out sprint.
For 400 meters.
Sprint.
Yeah. Every sprinter they're like, God, I hope I don't have to run the 400 this year. It's just freaking awful. And that is a mind over matter race. 200 you can do, 100 is great. That's pure speed. 400 is just how much pain can you take?
And you got to be very. Not only did he run the 400, but he also ran hurdles. And you got to be a straight up athlete to run hurdles. I mean,
yeah.
So to your point, that guy sounds like a Kirby Smart wet dream. Just all around athlete. Get him here. We'll find out where he fits. I did the same thing with Eric Stokes. It's like, no, we'll just get him here. We'll figure it out later. And with the Mackay Muses of the world, with the trying to think of the other two walk-ons that transferred.
What, Cash Jones?
Kirby Smart can look a kid in the eye and say, I know you have offers elsewhere. Come here. We have enough NLI for all of our players. Everybody gets something to supplement what it will cost you to be a preferred walk-on. So, you're gonna get some money that you can use toward your school. You probably won't be able to go out and buy a Lambo, but you'll be at least, you won't be behind the 8 balls so much. And on top of that, if you show you can play, you will play here. Look at all of our preferred walk-ons who have leading roles on this team. It's the ultimate meritocracy. I'm not going to play you because you're a 5-star. Hell, Kirby gets blasted for 5 stars to transfer away because they're not getting enough playing time. And other schools are using it against him. And he's like, why are they playing that 3-star walk-on when you're a 5-star and they signed you and you're not playing? But Kirby's like, look, I'm going to play the best player. My 2 cents.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if, middle of the year next year, you hear his name make a tackle on, a punt return or kickoff on special teams.
Oh, you're right. Oh, you guys remember last week, Joe Wyndham just raved about him, said, look, he's not just a G5 player. He's a P5 player.
Mm-hmm.
And if Joe says it, then I believe it. He's been sending the kids tape to, P5 schools, SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12, Big whoever. He's been sending them to them. So that exists. All right. Yeah, it's good. Good wrap. That was all that happened on signing day. Georgia picked up Jeremy Bell, and wait, did they also get another preferred walk on?
Running back Brandon Hood,
Elka,
who admittedly I don't know a ton about, but I have seen people on the board who do, and they're like, this kid can fly. So this says one comment says he's closer to 210, 215. Let's see, there was one comment about his speed in here somewhere. I don't know. He's got good speed, and if you've got good speed at 210, 215 pounds, that's a good start for preferred walk-on running back right there. So it's another, piece to the puzzle for a running back room that got a little thin at points last year. And Rowdy, you were talking about if you can show you can play. Cash Jones is a perfect example to sell to a running back of, hey, you can carve out some run. You can start off by mopping things up in against Tennessee Tech early in the year, and then if you show you can play there, who knows what can happen down the line. So
we'll throw you a couple passes against Florida.
And like it or not, Cash Jones was at the end of the year was the third back. He was behind. Yeah. He was in front of the two younger guys. So,
no question. So, hey, if you give Del McGee again, Del McGee's also been named the Rivals Recruiter of the Year in the past. That's a guy who not only recruits running backs, he gets some Michael Williams and guys like that to sign. If he wants you as a preferred running back, then jump on it because he too will play you. I mean, it doesn't matter that the guy he signed was a 5-star, especially if you got a back issue or a hamstring issue or an ankle or a knee. They need the body, so I see that. All right, last weekend was a big recruiting weekend. Big recruiting weekend last weekend. A number of guys came up for Georgia's junior day. Kind of give me let's go to the number one guy that came into town, the number one guys everybody wants to know about, and let's get all of you to go on the record and tell us that Julian Lewis is coming to Georgia. So go ahead and make your promises and your predictions now.
Trent's the guy that handles all the 5-star quarterback stuff, dating back to the Arch Manning time. So I'll let him take the lead on that. But yeah, Julian Lewis is in Athens a lot. He came back first time as a reclassified 2025 guy, and one of the quotes he had was, "Yeah, it's time to really start talking about what's next, what opportunities I would have at Georgia," because he's signing in 10 months instead of a year and 10 months. So the timeline is obviously accelerated there. And he said, "Look, Kirby Smart and Mike Bowe have made it clear if I come to Georgia, I've got a chance to be a part of something special. I can put up some big numbers, and I can win a lot of games." So from a quarterback's perspective, that's a pretty attractive pitch. So, he took a visit to Auburn. He took a visit to Colorado. He took a visit to Indiana out of nowhere. So he had a quote down there at the bottom where he wants to take official visits in June, and then it's going to be shut down one way or another before the season starts this fall. So, I kind of thought it might go into the summer, and that looks like it's the plan for Lewis and those around him right now. So we'll see. But I certainly think if we're talking about schools that could flip him, there's no one that's in a better position than Georgia to pull off that flip if it happens, just because of the relationships he's got. It's gone back so long. It's if he does flip, which I'm not guaranteeing by any means, I think it would be to Georgia.
Coward.
Yeah. Coward. But yeah, it's certainly Georgia is certainly. That's how I led my story. They're not backing down one bit, even with the USC commitment.
I mean, you can't be scared of USC. You can't be scared of any of the teams out there. I mean, if you're Kirby Smart, you're like, look, I'll recruit you as if you're coming here. And then if I miss on you, try to get you in the portal. But I'm not going to back down just because you committed somewhere. So that's never stopped him. And if anything, they'll just show that, hey, we consider you number one. Remember when we were recruiting you as if we told you were number one on our board. We recruited you that way for 2 years, 3 years. And then you went somewhere else and it didn't quite work out for you. But we still believe you're the number one guy on our board.
The only thing I'll predict is he's going to win the Heisman one day. There you go.
Yeah, would not shock me. And maybe we know he has a very good NIL deal lined up at USC. Mm-hmm. And this is going to be an NIL deal or NIL situation that is out of the norm for what Kirby's doing right now. I say Kirby, it's what the Classic City Collective is doing, but what Kirby's comfortable with. This is going to be beyond that. But I think in this situation, they are going to go a different route through NIL. You're going to have to. This isn't going to be, hey, call up a big booster and get payments for this kid to advertise their car dealership or their, I was trying to think of the guy that was making some money recently. They have all the billboards up. Your law firm. That's not going to be the situation like that. This is going to be like where you have a Delta or a Home Depot or somebody come in and say, look, you got a deal like when you were signing a NFL guy. You're going to need, a big corporate. This needs to be on a corporate account, not a personal account, is what I'm saying. Yeah. And I think if you go to enough Georgia boosters out there, say, look, you guys you're the head of marketing for Coca-Cola. You're the head of marketing for Home Depot or Lowe's or whoever. Can you come up with use this guy as your next pitch man? And if they come up with that, Georgia's right back in there. So.
And I think you find a lot of these guys, that might not be a quarterback, but Julian Lewis is a big name. And it's been a big name for several years. Mm-hmm. And I think you could get that. I think because of his name, because of what he's carried in the state of Georgia for the past, since he was a freshman. So I think that has it going, in Georgia's way to be able to get that worked out because of his name and his name around the state of Georgia. I think that's working in their favor.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. Anyway, I'm not going to go out and say, yeah, Georgia's going to get him, but I think you see so many people go, there's no chance. He's just using Georgia to increase his deal. He's already committed. He's not using Georgia for leverage to get anywhere. Georgia's just going after him. Now, could they drive up the price and make USC have to come up with a better deal? Maybe. But Kirby's not going to quit on this kid because they believe it. This is another Justice Haynes, Caleb Downs, KJ Bolden type guy. This is a guy they want. They want him badly. No question in my mind, they're going to do everything they can to get him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who else visited this past weekend that we could talk about?
Yeah, there was Julian Lewis. There was Talyn Taylor, who I mentioned, the number 6 receiver in the country, and he kind of like that. We've talked about. Ryan Montgomery has visited Georgia unofficially several times. Taylor's from Illinois, so getting down to Georgia is no small thing there. He loved it. He's got he told me something because Georgia always sells these kids on it's a pro style offense. It'll get you ready for the league. Brian McClendon worked in. He's like, hey, turn on the Senior Bowl and see what Lad McConkey and Marcus Roseman-Jackson are doing. You know why they're doing great at the Senior Bowl? Because they're coming out of a pro style offense and it's less of an adjustment. So some real time, real world examples to use for Talyn Taylor there. Georgia's one of the top contenders. They're going to get an official visit, although he doesn't have a date set up or anything. Zion Grady is another one recently decommitted from Alabama. Edge guy that Georgia's been after for a while. Also very high on Georgia. There's Auburn involved. Trying to think who else he said. Alabama is still involved. So he just got an offer from Ohio State. Bo Jackson, the running back from Cleveland. You got to be good if your name's Bo Jackson. He is a monster. Georgia just offered him a couple weeks ago. This was his first visit, and he posted a picture, and he looks like a full-grown man standing. I don't know if it was Del McGee or Kirby or whoever he was standing next to, but he looked like Bo Jackson standing there. So that's another kind of name to know on the 2025 running back board.
There were two. We won't give away everything. You had stories on Tristan Haynes, Drew Evans, Eric Winters, Nas Newkirk. You guys covered a lot of people that visited. Had another update with Matt Zollers too, the 2025 quarterback. So I'm just going down the list. Like I said, Zion Grady. You guys did a great job covering all the people that visited.
2 big offensive tackles in Juan Gaston and Nikolai Brooks or
Brooks? Yeah.
Yeah,
Gaston is a giant.
Yeah, you talk about absolute giants. That kid, when he posted that picture on Twitter with Kirby, He's like 6-7 inches taller than Kirby and a lot wider.
I love Gus Dodd. He's awesome. I hope he's at the Under Armour camp in a couple weeks. We'll see him. Hey, real quick, let's finish up the show with questions from the board. If you go to ujsports.com, which is where we all work, and you check out the Vault. The Vault was designed many, many years ago when we had so many recruiting questions on the vent that we said, look, we just got to have a different place to put all the recruiting stuff. So we have the dog vent for general Georgia football and college football discussions. And then we have the Vault just for recruiting. And we put up a note over there. Give us your questions. And first one comes from KSDJ1869. Says, after last weekend, what recruits, I give at least one on offense and one on defense, did we boost our stock with? And who of those do you see committing first? So we got to come up with of the visits, who did Georgia increase their chances with?
I'll go Talyn Taylor on offense just because I think Georgia has been a favorite for a while, and getting him back, getting around, around the coaches again, and getting him back on campus and getting, again, that look at the development. He said he talked with Kirby Smart about life after football and how Georgia takes care of its players even after football, and who better to attest to that than Kirby Smart, a former player. So I just think overall Georgia is in a really good spot there. I posted a story on the board this morning, and so I was like, well, I can't wait till another highly ranked receiver goes somewhere else for NIL bag at the last minute. It's like I don't think that is going to happen with Talyn Taylor. He seems like a very level-headed guy who knows. And he had another quote too. He's like, I don't want to go somewhere. I don't want to commit somewhere and decommit. I don't want to commit somewhere and sign and go in the transfer portal. I want to go somewhere where I'll be for the next 3 to 4 years. Shall I go to the NFL? And Georgia's a place where that's possible. So I think Georgia's in a really, really good spot for Talyn Taylor at this point. In defense, I don't know, Lance and Trent, you guys got anybody?
I would say Xavier Griffin. I've got a story coming with him. He's kind of a hybrid linebacker, defensive lineman out of Gainesville. I think we've got him rated as one of the top 150 players in the country in 2025. He spoke highly of it, and he just got offered a few weeks ago. Originally from Alabama, moved to Gainesville, has family in Georgia, right up the street in Hall County. And he raved about Glenn Schumann and just kind of spending time with him or on the phone before, and then they chopped it up in real life, and he felt like he wanted to be there. So
I might add Zion Gray to that because I think getting him back on campus after that Alabama decommit's got to be big.
Yeah, and especially because he was planning on being back before he decommitted anyway, and then so now getting him back, getting to show what you have to offer and development and the whole spiel there. So yeah, that's a big one. I mean, and again, he's a guy, if you look to add these pass rusher, defensive end, outside linebackers, whatever, he's up there at the top of the board. And another guy, Darren Ikenagbon from New Jersey, is another guy who just one of these athletic freaks on the edge that was in for a visit over the weekend, and Georgia is prioritizing as well. So big weekend as far as the outside linebacker, rusher, edge is whatever you want to call it goes.
Hey, I will go on the record now and predict that at one point we're talking about Chidera Uza-Deribe being the Rivals Recruiter of the Year at some point. So if you get Zion Grady and the New Jersey kid, come sit down with him. He is a charismatic.
Yeah, for sure.
Love playing for him. The guys who play for him now love talking about him. So I think getting Zion Grady in there is pretty good move there. All right,
you got to watch this new defensive back coach too, Dante Williams, with all his California connections, along with coming into Georgia and building these relationships with the Southeast. You got to watch him because I think he's going to have a big impact on not only the secondary, but landing a few kids out west that he had connections with prior.
That's a good point. KB Dog 08 says, are we going to recruit Byron Washington, the huge offensive lineman in Texas?
That is not a name I'm familiar with. Is that the guy who went had the viral picture where he looked like he was about 4 times bigger than everybody else. Yeah, he's 6'7", 3". I think this is the guy who there was a viral picture from the state championships in Texas, and he was in front of a guy that's like 230 pounds and makes him look like a ragdoll.
Jesus.
I don't know that Georgia is really in on him right now, and there's so many guys above him on the board that have had longer relationships and stuff. But anytime you've got a guy that big, he's playing guard in these clips, which is ridiculous.
Pro needs to play with a better pad level, though. Goodness, they're just standing up, throwing people around.
So, I don't think Georgia is really in on him right now. I think the only way they would is if you get him on campus, maybe in the spring for a workout or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of guys higher on the board / have been targets for a lot longer right now.
I'd like to see if he can actually get into a 3-point stance. I'm not sure that he can.
That number 10 was just for a rod. They didn't pay for that.
That poor kid. All right. Well, KB Dog 08 says, how many D linemen do you think he'll take this year?
I would think, would y'all say probably at least 4 at least, just because you're losing, you're for sure losing Stackhouse and
Walther.
Yeah, thank you. And you're probably losing Brinson too. So you could lose Michael Williams. You could lose, theoretically, you could lose Kristen Miller if he has a huge year. So I think you need to restock that room again. So yeah, I'd say at least 4, and like you said, Robert, probably
aim for 5.
5, yeah.
So just
Julian go around
as many as you can get, really.
Yeah.
Until if 7 say yes, then take all 7.
Yeah, I think the key, in this class is you have the guys. I think Justice Terry would fit in nicely at like a 3 tech. I think you have a couple of talented guys that can fit in that 5 tech that we discussed. I think you have to land a talented nose tackle. I think that's what Georgia's really missed on in last couple classes is just, these guys can develop into the next Jordan Davis as far as I know, but I do think you got to land a talented big guy in this class, and there's a lot of talent. Like I said, 3 and 5. I think you can take 2 of each of that position, but you got to land a talented nose tackle.
I agree. When Georgia runs that mint, you got to have that guy. No question. Last question from OEJ says, how do you guys feel about Mason Short? If he doesn't recommit to Bama, where do you think he would commit to?
I think Georgia's got a really good shot to get Mason Short. He was on campus 2 or 3 times as an Alabama commit, so that should tell you something. He was another guy who I think was planning a Georgia visit before the Nick Saban retirement and decommitment stuff. So I think he's a guard. Honestly, I'm pretty sure we have him listed as a tackle. I think he's a guard.
I think he's the next tackle.
Yeah, I feel good about Georgia's chances of landing him. I know he's got a really good relationship with Stacey Searles.
Yeah, and Kirby went there and visited him in Evans, and I think the mom is the one in that family that I've heard kind of wants him at Bama. So I think Dad's leaning more towards Georgia. So I think that impressed her that Kirby showed up at Evans High School and spent a good amount of time with him.
Tate Ratledge was offensive tackle, and he was always offensive guard, but he was tackle in high school. What was he committed to Alabama, or was that Tennessee? He's committed somewhere for.
Who's that?
Tate Ratledge.
Yeah, Tate.
Well, they both got mullets, so
let's see. And Tate, he was hanging out with Tate on his visit to his last visit to Athens on the 14th or whatever that weekend in January it was.
But as a player, that's a short kind of
sharing shampoo secrets, man.
Yeah.
Tail and Maine, I think, is the brand.
Yeah. That sounds right.
We're getting deep.
Yeah. Here's the thing. When he decommitted from Alabama, he didn't hear from anybody from Alabama. That was a while. So he decommits, doesn't hear anything from the staff. Then Kirby Smart shows up, as you mentioned, Lance, goes up there, and that kind of impresses him. Now they've finally gotten back. He's been reoffered,
Yeah.
and they are pushing hard to get him.
Yeah.
It would not shock me if he recommitted because he does like Alabama.
Mhm.
It's not just I get your point about the mom wanting it, but he also loves Bama. He likes Georgia a lot too, as you pointed out. He visits all the time. He likes the staff here. He likes the players. In his mind, guessing in his mind, how do you go wrong? You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
So
And it
comes
could
down
be
to
one
preference.
to just you give it a few months, you see how you've already got those relationships pretty much in place with the Georgia staff. See how things go with the guys at Alabama, and then you decide you take official visits both in the summer, and then you go from there.
It's going to be interesting to see what kind of impacts. I think Alabama still holds the Alabama name right now, but after a year of watching them, how's this going to look? Like, I think it's going to affect recruiting their on the field play, and I think they're going to run out. I think their offense is going to be. I think that they got a great offensive system. I think Washington did. It'd be interesting to see, number one, how Jalen Milroe fits into that offense, and number two, they have the 96th ranked defense at Washington. And a lot of it has to do with what kind of offense they play. Their offense is scoring very quickly. How is the defense going to impact recruiting in the SEC? Because we always talk about one game doesn't matter, one game don't matter, but on the field results and constant results does matter. And if you don't run out a defense that is to Alabama standard, and bad defense is ranked in the top 20 at Alabama, it's gonna take a toll on recruiting, and it'll be interesting to see how that impacts recruiting.
You just basically assign them to be the next Ole Miss.
Who's the assistant offensive line coach that was making visits while Searles was in the hospital? I think
Man Ray Saint Amour.
I think that did he visit him with Kirby? Do we know that? So I know I heard positive things about the guys he visited.
Now, was that the same Saint Amour that was at North Gwinnett? When they went on to Georgia Tech, or was that I can't imagine there's too many different Saint Amours.
Could have been. I'm trying to find it.
I've been in this business too long. All the names running together.
Plus, you're getting old. His
That's why you don't get paid.
I feel like we're just covering the Ogletree brothers. Huh.
Let's see.
Well, while you're looking that up, to your point, Trent, I think Alabama's still freaking Alabama. They still have that gravitas. They still have that name recognition. But you're right. One bad year, 2 bad years, and you're coming in to replace the man. We're so into snap judgments in the culture now. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, they're rolling right along with the new coach. DeBoer's perfect. He can do no wrong. He's a perfect replacement." And then they continue to kick everybody's butt on the recruiting trail, except Georgia's. Or it's like, "Oh, this was a bad hire. They don't have a good defense, and if you can't get defenses in the SEC, then you have to outscore people, and that is not hell. Did it work for LSU? Nope. Did it work for Ole Miss? Nope. Great offenses, great quarterbacks, great systems. You score a ton of points, but if you can't stop anybody, you will win a goodly number of games, but you won't win championships. Defense wins championships.
You look back over the last 10 years, what wins championships? The trenches. I mean, the defensive line, offensive line. If you get to Alabama and you ain't playing no defense, they're not going to land those top tier defensive linemen year in and year out anymore if their defense struggles. I think it'll be interesting in that standpoint. I think it'll be interesting to see, can they maintain the success they have had throughout the years recruiting the big dogs, because you can't bring that Washington offense and defense and constantly win or consistently win in the SEC. You just can't do it because you got to have the hog dogs up front. And if you don't have the offense and defense, it's going to be tough. Or the linemen.
Did you ever get an answer on the Saint Amour?
Yes, he did. He played at Georgia Southern and then played at North Gwinnett.
Awesome. Remember going out there to see a different kid, and the head coach there, Bob, was going, "Hey, let me tell you about this other guy. Say no more. Okay. So again, been here way too long. Speaking of, that's I'm old man. It's time for me to go to bed. I thought this would be a quick show. We actually went over an hour. So I'm going off to bed. I'm going to make you guys do all the recruiting stuff for tomorrow. We have a lot more at UJSports.com. We mentioned a bunch of updates that are at UGA Sports. We're not going to talk about them all on the air. That's too many stories a week to recap. But you, for 27 cents a day, can go to UJSports.com and read them all. So check it out. And we will not have a show next week, but we will be back the following Monday. We're going to have Joe Winden on. He was a huge hit. Joe is the one that all the coaches pay money to help them scout. He's the one that was telling us great stuff about Jeremy Bell. We're going to make him go over some of the 2024 guys in this class that he thinks are sleepers, some guys that he likes on the offense, and then we're going to get his thoughts on the class of 2025. So be ready when we put up the prompt at UJSports.com on the vault. Get your questions in next week for the following Monday's show with Joe Winden here. And with that, we will see y'all later. Take care.